turn it over to you, Sean. Take it away.
Okay, great. Well, good morning, everybody on the West Coast, or if you're the East Coast like me, then good afternoon. I think I recognize some of your names from application seasons of past. So nice to talk to you again if I haven't talked to you before, or if I have talked to you before, and nice to meet you if I haven't talked to you before. I'm going to keep this really casual and informal. I've got the I've got a list of things, very simple here in the in this Word document about what we're going to talk about today. This was a list that that Ravi and I kind of brainstormed together, and Michelle as well, of kind of the most common things we think people are going to run into. And what I like to do in these sessions is basically just talk about FEMA Go for a few minutes, maybe 15 or 20 minutes, and show you what I'm talking about on the screen, and then just open it up for question and answer. So I'm going to go ahead and get right into it. So is there, let me look at the, we have, give me a little green check if you have never used FEMA Go before in the participants thing. So 3, Annie, Cynthia, John, you guys have never used it before. Oh, and Stephanie as well, okay. All right. So the first things that you're going to need to do is register an account and join your organization. So I'm going to for the demonstration, I'm going to use the test environment here, but in the real world where you guys will go, it's just go.fema.gov, and that'll take you to this page where it says Welcome to FEMA Grants Outcomes. In the past, we used a system called Mitigation eGrants to take in our applications and our sub-applications, and those that system has been replaced by this. We call it FEMA Go, and it's pretty easy. This part is pretty easy. You'll just create an account. You'll put in your email. It'll send you the confirmation email. It's just like signing up for any other web page. It's a piece of cake. But after you do that, there's a couple of more steps that are required, and I'll show you what those look like. So I'm going to log into the test environment here. So after you register an account, like I said, and the first time you log in, this page will be blank. It'll just say, hello, whatever your name is, and all you'll have is this, accessing your organization. So here you'll type in your DUNS number, or the unique entity identifier, as they're calling it now, and you can get that information from your sam.gov account if you don't have it handy, and paste that in here. And there are 2 individuals that are automatically recognized by FEMA Go. So sam.gov and FEMA Go are 2 different systems, right? But they talk to each other. So FEMA Go knows your DUNS number, and it knows who your electronic business point of contact is in sam.gov, and who your government business point of contact is in sam.gov. And those 2 individuals are the default authorized organization representative. And they're kind of like the I was going to try to make some kind of analogy, but they're the 2 people that can give other persons in your organization roles. And you're going to need, most of you are going to need the AOR role and the SAR role. So this will allow you to do the grant application, and this will allow you to do the sub-applications that are attached to that grant. So our programs are kind of a two-step process where your projects and your plans and all that kind of stuff are sub-applications, and those are all rolled up into a grant application, like an envelope. So you stuff that envelope full of sub-applications and submit that whole package up to FEMA. So that's kind of an overview of what that's like. I've got videos about that, and I've got user manuals about that. So I'm not going to go into a ton of detail, but there is a little bit of work that you need to do to get yourself set up correctly in FEMA Go before you can start working. And once you have those roles, that an organization level role like AOR and a sub-organization level role, then you'll be able to see the BRIC application, the grant application itself, and the hazard mitigation sub-application. So for, like I said, for our programs, there's no BRIC sub-application. It's just a sub-application. It doesn't really care what, it could be attached to either the FMA grant or the BRIC grant. So a plan is a plan, a project is a project. But we've never had any tribes participate in the flood mitigation assistance program because there's some requirements there about being a participating community that no one's ever done before. So it'll be interesting to see the first tribe come through in that grant program if flooding is a big issue for them. Like some of the Midwest tribes, it would be pretty applicable. Anyway, that was kind of a sidetrack, but anyway, after you get those roles, you'll have the sub-application and the application available to you. So that's kind of this one, how to access FEMA Go and get started. And I see, Cynthia, you put in there that you need to add. I signed up but have not utilized it. So it sounds like you're in that position where you'll need to get roles and get everything hooked up. So while I'm talking about that, like once you get access to the system, once you get these links to these applications, that's kind of an overview of that process, right? You'll create your sub-application or sub-applications. You're going to have at least two, whether you're doing a plan update or a new hazard mitigation plan or a project. You're going to have that sub-application, and then you're going to have a management cost sub-application for your 10% tribal management costs. So you're going to have a minimum of two sub-applications to add to your grant application. And if you're going to do, if you're doing a hazard mitigation plan update and a project, then you're going to have three, right? So you have your plan, your project, and your management cost. And I know that our friends here at Region 10 have a ton of resources for this stuff too, on how to do all that. So that's kind of an overview of what the application process looked like. Then you have, you have quite a while to do this, and then after it's submitted to FEMA, FEMA reviews it and all that stuff that happens down the road. One of the things that I wanted to point out specifically for tribes is, and we ran into this last year, because it was a new grant program and the first time using FEMA Go, it was a handful last year, I'll put it that way. And I talked to some very experienced grant writers You know, they've been working grants in tribal governments for years. And I asked them, I said, hey, what, you know, how complicated was this process to apply for BRIC compared to your typical grants.gov application? And like one guy I was talking to from the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe, he's like, yeah, a grants.gov application is about a 2 out of 10 on the complexity scale. And he said, I would call this one a 9, and a 9 out of 10 on the complexity scale. So it's not as easy as a typical grant application. So give yourself, you know, like weeks and months to work on this thing, not just you know, a couple of days. I had several people that had done the groundwork, if you will. They had the paperwork, they had gotten their approvals kind of outside the system, and then it was someone's job to come and enter the information into FEMA Go, and they only gave themselves like a day or 2 days to do that, and it wasn't enough time. They had to, you know, if any little problem, if that's all the time you give yourself, you're going to run into problems. We were able to get those folks in, but it was far from ideal, and especially with COVID and everything, people had some pretty crazy schedules last year. So that's the most common pitfall that I've seen for tribal applicants, is just not giving themselves ample time to navigate through this whole thing. Another issue that we had last year that's worth talking about. Remember, I said when you first sign up, I click on. This will take me back to the home page, please. Okay, here we are. You need to enter your DUNS number here, or your unique entity identifiers, they're calling it now. The FEMA Go system needs a way to recognize you as a direct grant recipient to FEMA, right? If you're a local community, if you're a town or a county, you're not an eligible grant recipient for these programs. You would have to work through your state or your territory. But a federally recognized Indian tribe is an eligible direct grant recipient to FEMA, and the system needs a way to recognize that, and they do it through this DUNS number, or the unique entity identifier. It's probably going to take me a couple of years to stop saying DUNS number, and that's a list they call the direct grant recipient list. And what we found out last year was a bunch of people were not on that list because they had never participated in our grant programs before. The only tribes that got added to that list were ones that had previously participated with our programs, either in HMGP or the pre-disaster mitigation grant program. So we had a lot of catch up to do, when they would go through that process that I described before of signing up for FEMA Go and then registering and not having the Hazard Mitigation Assistance Grant Program available to them because they had not been identified as a direct grant recipient. So then we had to do all this stuff in the database and get them added on. I think we have that solved, but I'm a little tender about that, if you will, from last year. And so I would encourage you to get your account set up as soon as possible, and we'll be on the lookout for any problems around that. All right. This is another good one. Where do you go for help? So if you've got, I kind of want to split this out into two different areas. So like depending on what kind of question you have, it's like who would be the best person to talk to. So if you've got a programmatic question about Like, is this an eligible project? Is this a feasible project? Is this, you know, what do I need to do if my plan is going to expire, and et cetera, et cetera? Those are programmatic questions. And the guys at Region 10 can answer those questions for you. If you get yourself locked out of the system, or you get an error message or anything like that, I call those system issues, right? Like something's wrong with the computer question. And for that, there is a help desk. I don't know if they have a link. I think they have a link to it on the login page here. They have a link to that. Let me make this a little bigger so we can see it. It's right down here, FEMA Go at fema.dhs.gov, and they have a toll-free number also. So it's right on the login page. They've got their email and their toll-free number. Last year, the help desk was grossly understaffed, and they weren't very responsive. But they have a good staff this year, and so I would encourage you, if you get an error message or you know, get yourself locked out or something like that, definitely contact the help desk. And if you think it's going to mess with your deadlines, I would definitely let the region know as well. But I just wanted to point that out, that they do have a good help desk this year for those kind of system issues. And of course, if you ask the FEMA Go help desk a programmatic question, you know, about something to clarify something that's in the notice of funding opportunity, they're not going to know the answer to that question. That's something that you'd have to ask Brenna or Ravi or Kayla there at the region. We kind of get like random programmatic questions to the legacy help desk. I think sometimes when people have questions, they just ask everyone and then compare and go with the answer they like best. So I'm going to go ahead and log back in. I mentioned that I have videos and user manuals. So let's talk about those for a second. These just went on to YouTube yesterday, so I don't have a link to them on my web page yet, but I'm going to put this in the chat for everybody. Or should I put it in the Q&A? Good one. I'll put it in the, I think
I feel like the chat might be the best.
Yep, I'm just making that window bigger for myself.
Sorry, I was double muted. Yeah, the chat will be best because it'll be a live link.
Oh, great. Okay, so this first link, that's for the grant. Yeah, thanks for mentioning that, Ravi. Yeah, sometimes you don't know if is this a programmatic question or a system question. So we'll be happy. I'll help you with either one. Yeah. Anyway, that first link that I put in there, that's specifically for you guys. That's about application development, right? How to make that grant application, and then how to. Oops, I got that backwards. Oh no, I didn't. Yeah, so this is specifically for you guys. Like, how do I create that grant application and attach sub-applications to it, and then submit the whole thing to FEMA. And then this link is specifically for creating a sub-application. So I'm going to copy that one. They kind of, I'm not crazy about the titles they chose for my videos, but that's okay. I won't complain. but those go through the whole process of, you know, like if you watch all these videos and you have a copy of the user manual, you're going to have a pretty good working knowledge of what needs to happen to get this thing across the finish line. So let's go FEMA.gov. I like to show people how to look stuff up. So if you want to look up the user manual, like we have a link to it in the chat as well, but if you just go to FEMA.gov and then there's only a couple of clicks. Go to FEMA.gov, click on grants, click on hazard mitigation assistance grants, and then you can read the notice of funding opportunity. If we could make that a little bigger. You can read the notice of funding opportunity. That's all the rules around what's required and what's eligible and all that stuff, what the dates are, how much money there is. They go into all those kind of details on that. And then there's a link to the BRIC grant program here, Building Resilient Infrastructures and Communities. And since this is for the whole BRIC grant program, there's a bunch of stuff in here, and I'm just going to show you that if you scroll down, one of the first links at the bottom is FEMA grants outcomes for hazard mitigation assistance grants, and this is my web page. So on here, I've got, you know, a link to FEMA Go. I've got their help desk information that I mentioned before. You know, here it says stuff like I was already mentioning. If you've got those kind of general questions, you know, you guys would want to contact your regional office, because you're going to apply directly to FEMA. You're not going to go through a state. If you're going to do a project, a benefit cost analysis is required, and there's trainings and a ton of help material about that. That's kind of a complicated deal. It can be, depending on how complicated your project is. But that's another common pitfall is people will submit a project sub-application and they'll either not do a BCA or they'll do a really sloppy BCA, and then their project isn't eligible. So BCAs are important, and they're required by OMB, the Office of Management and Budget. Yeah, so if we keep scrolling down, there's additional resources to these training videos. That's going to take you to this video library here, and like I said, the grant application development videos are so new that I haven't had a chance to have an additional link put here, and we have in the chat there. So, and if we keep going down even farther, you can see here there's the FEMA Go user manual application development for hazard mitigation grants, and that's going to pair very nicely with these videos. And there's also the sub-application development user manual, and that's going to pair very nicely with these videos. So, like I said, you got to do your sub-applications, and then you've got to create the grant application envelope and stuff those guys in there and send the whole thing up to FEMA. And then this one right here, the FEMA Go Organization and Sub-Organization Management Guide, that helps explain all that gibberish I was talking about, the default authorized organization representative and all that kind of stuff, to help you understand those roles and how they work. And you know, we're always happy to help you with that kind of stuff. Sometimes it's just a little more simple to have everybody hop on Zoom for 10 minutes instead of, you know, trying to trying to figure it out for yourself. Some people are very determined to figure things out for themselves, which is great. But you know, if it's something we can solve in 5 or 10 minutes on Zoom, and it's going to take you 2.5 hours, then by all means, let's get on Zoom or WebEx or whatever. But yeah, so if you get hung up on stuff like that, you know, just reach out. We'd be happy to help you. But anyway, there's plenty of things in here. I think the other thing I can point out is if you just want to look at all the questions in a sub-application, you know, for your plan or for your management costs, there are printable versions of these on this web page as well. We've had that in, we had a couple of Alaska Native villages apply last year. They used these because they didn't have reliable internet access in their village. So, you know, that's a thing, right? And so they were able to basically fill this information out and then work with somebody from the Alaska Native Health Association to submit those that it was in town, it had a reliable internet connection. So might come in handy. So that's pretty much everything on my list, and that took about a half an hour. So I actually talked a little bit more than I was planning to. What individual questions does that bring up for you guys? Can I show you anything you want to see on the screen? Like, hey, I'm in this situation, and what do I need to do next? Or I'll be happy to cover any questions you have, and we've got the program staff all here too to answer programmatic questions as well. Draft and you haven't finished it yet, it's going to be in this pending submission status. And when it's like that, you can either keep working on it or just take a look at it through the view. Once it's been approved, you can only view. You can reopen that if you've approved it. There's a way to turn that back on and make changes to it, but that requires a couple of steps. What are the other? Since not submitted, so this is one that that was a grant actually. Yeah, so these are test grants that I made last year, and that funding cycle has now expired, so they just say not submitted. You can't do anything with them. So when you go, where's one? Do I have one that's submitted? To recipient. Do not. But yeah, once you've finished, that one's not ready to submit. Once you've finished all of these sections and you have green checks on all of those, the submit for signature button will become activated there, and it'll take you back up to the top of the sub application, but you can just click on sign and submit down at the bottom, and you fill out your I think you have to digitally sign it with your password like 7 or 8 times for all the assurances and certifications. And actually that brings up a good point, Brenna. Are you going to ask for any of the standard form 424 family as attachments, or are you going to go with the system generated?
Yeah, but the SF424A and the SF424A, or excuse me, the SF424A and the SF424 are good attachments just to include in your application, since our grants program division does require that when they issue the award. So it just prevents one more RFI, or request for information, down the road.
Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting feature, if you will, of FEMA Go. You actually sign those forms digitally, but there's no way for us to view them or for yourself to view them after you have digitally signed them. And so in some people's interpretation, therefore they don't exist and they need a copy of them. So take an extra moment to include those as an attachment if you'd like to save yourself a little work in the future. Perhaps, or you might end up doing it again. But it's a very simple form, so it's not like it's going to take you all day to fill it out. Cool. A couple more details on things that you want to look out for in the when you're developing your sub-application. One of the program requirements, and Brenna and Ravi, correct me if I got this interpretation wrong on the go, no-go milestones, but those are a requirement of the BRIC grant program, and they need to be clearly identified and easy to find for the FEMA reviewer. So that's one of the things that we've had to do a lot of RFIs for this year, is people either put their milestone in an obscure location or didn't include it at all. And so I was advising people to put it into the schedule section, and I've heard that it should also even be more clearly labeled as a go, no go milestone, which is kind of repetitive, but okay. So, you know, a go, no go milestone would be like something, if you were going to hire a contractor to do your hazard mitigation plan update, and you know, you're 6 months into a year-long project and you don't have a contractor, that might be a milestone. You know, like, hey, I never got a contractor. This thing's not going to happen. So that might be. So anyway, yeah, this is my suggestion on where to put your go, no go milestones. And this, right, just spell it out right in the schedule section. Another thing that is very helpful to the FEMA reviewer is there's a requirement if you're doing something other than a new hazard mitigation plan, there's a requirement that your proposed mitigation activity be directly linked to your hazard mitigation plan, right? This is what we said we're going to do in our plan, and here we are trying to do it through this sub-application, this grant application. So you want to draw that link as obviously as possible for the FEMA reviewer. And there's no specific question in the sub-application that says, hey, tell us exactly how this proposed mitigation activity coincides with your plan. So a great place to put it would be in this comments box in the mitigation plan section. Just spell it out, right? You know, this is what we're doing, and we said we were going to do it in our hazard mitigation plan on page 22 or whatever. I even had some folks last year that suggested, you know, taking a couple of electronic pages from your hazard mitigation plan that are directly related to what you're trying to do and highlighting the relevant language in the hazard mitigation plan and just loading that up as an attachment. Just makes it super obvious that you've met that requirement. and then the I don't want to get into management costs, but there's math involved. We'll just put it that way. We're going to have to do some math. And there's subrecipient management costs, and there are the grant management costs for the tribal management costs. So the tribal management costs are a separate sub-application that if you're doing, for this particular sub-application as a project, and so the subrecipient management costs are added right inside the sub-application. So you're kind of getting a little bit of extra money there with that 5% subrecipient management cost.
Hey, Sean, this is Robbie. Just want to go back and let's see here. Revisit one thing about the Go No-Go milestones. Brenna posted in the chat that they're required for projects.
I see that.
Just want to clarify, they're only required for projects. They're not required for other sub-applications like plans or project scoping.
Thanks for clarifying that. I didn't.
No problem.
Yeah, so I said something about a plan in my example that wouldn't be relevant. It would only be for a project. Usually have a lot of questions either until I roll up my sleeves and get in there and start working on it. So hopefully this kind of helps you get started, and I look forward to helping you during the rest of the open application period.
From the programmatic side, I want to say thank you so much, Sean, for this presentation and for this really great information and great resources and great videos to help everyone get through FEMA Go. And just want to remind everyone that we have another webinar next week on October 28th, starting at 10 a.m. We have a webinar on FEMA grants management, which will be the last in the series.